Alright, so now we're going to learn how to combine kind of multiple objects to make a complex piece. Something similar to this, and I actually wanted this to be more of a cylinder, so I'm going to go a bit more into depth of how we can maybe hold this shape a little bit more and talk about why this one kind of didn't turn out to be a complete cylinder. So I'm going to hit 1 so you can see what the low res geometry looks like, and we're going to create this piece, but we're going to try to make it a little bit better. So I'm going to start with the polygon plane. So create polygon primitives plane. Let's move this guy over here, move him up a bit. Now I started kind of more low res, so I started with 6 by 6, and what I did is I only grabbed these 4 in the center. And 8 sides is the minimum we need to kind of make a good starting to be high-res cylinder. But you can run into issues where your forms may not hold as well. And it happens when we start inserting edge loops like this. They'll start to distort what this shape is. Because as you put verts in between other ones, they start to kind of solidify or hold that shape. And we'll add holding edges on this to kind of tighten it up, so you'll start kind of getting an understanding for how putting in edges is going to manipulate what it looks like when we do a final smooth operation on our geometry. Alright, so for this one I'm going to up-res it a little bit, which we run into additional issues with. So let's do 12 by 12. So before I grab just these 4, I'm going to grab all these guys this time and go ahead, shift right click, and I'm going to do a circularize components. Over twist, I'm middle mouse. I'm just kind of untwisting that till it looks straight. And this is best performed probably in the top view, so wherever you can look straight onto it and get like these edges moving straight. So that's pretty good. I'm going to hit Q to get out of the options there for the tool. And now we can extrude this straight up. So I'm going to shift right click, go to extrude face, hit W, and bring this guy up. Now normally we would obviously be following some reference in the background, so we'd know exactly where to drag these edges to. But we're just going to kind of freehand it so we can get this shape and kind of understand how we did that. So I'm going to go ahead and create a polygon cube. So create polygon primitives cube. And for now, let's just have this divided 1 by 1. So under polycube, just 1 by 1 by 1 is what we're looking for. So you can make all these changes in your channel box. Or when you create it, you could go to the options box and change those. So I'm going to go to my top view. I'm going to take this cube and I'm going to line it up. So let's go to object mode. I'm going to line it up similar to how we had in the last one. So about that size. And let's move it up. Alright, so the first thing that I usually look for is I want a little bit of kind of buffer zone between the two objects, just a little bit of space. And this is going to help me because the method I'm going to show you is going to allow me to put a looping structure around this so I can contain any detail I have to add. Another good thing to look for is that it lines up with other edges. So the problem that I had is these edges I put in by hand on the other model. These are already put in to kind of hold that shape of the cylinder, so I'm going to run into less issues. So when I usually add detail, I look at my smallest detail and I think about how many kind of edges I'm going to need to create that. and that's going to kind of drive how many edges I put into my primary forms. So as you get more accustomed to modeling, it might be easier for you guys to look to the highest detail or the highest res detail you're going to model. Think about excuse me, the edges needed, and then kind of start from there so you know how dense to build your primitives. I'm going to, with this polycube selected, I'm in my channel box. I'm going to just put 2's in for all those subdivisions. So that's going to start lining up with what I'm seeing kind of out here. I'm going to have to add some in and maybe move some around, but I'm going to pretty much have the shapes I need. So these edges right here, I'm going to use to line up with these vertical ones on the box. So let's do that first. So let's select here, go to vertices, and in my top view, I can see these vertexes right here. I'm going to slide to line up with the box. This way I'm not adding more edge loops, so you always want to look at, can I use what's already out there? I'm going to click on the box, and if this is easier for you to do in perspective, you can do it that way, and then jump back to the top view. Now I want to grab, and notice I'm dragging a box, so I'm grabbing all the vertices going through that edge, right? If I were to just click on that vert, it's only going to select that one vert and not all of them down the edge. So watch in perspective here, when I marquee select around these vertices, it selects everything going down. So it's important to keep this in mind because it can really goof you up with selections. Now I'm going to move these guys back so they're about the same distance away from the cylinder as it is in the center. So I'm sort of kind of pre-lining up all these shapes for what I'm about to do. Now I want to make sure all those interior, actually I think, yep, I need 2 more cuts. So we're going to, if we look at this from the front view, I need cuts through this, this cylinder shape right here and right here in order to put that box in. So shift right click, insert edges, and I'm going to insert an edge right here that lines up with that box. Let me do this. I'm going to hide that other one because that is kind of obstructing our view. So before it looked like there was edges up here, but there weren't. So let me go to edge mode. And since the last thing I did is drop that edge, it's already selected. If I wanted to select that, I could double click it and it's going to select that entire edge ring. Move that up so it matches pretty much perfectly. I could vert snap that too, so I could hold down V, and with moving this handle, just hover over a vert over here on that square. It's going to snap it right into place. I'm going to go ahead and go to object mode again. Shift right click, go to insert edge loop, move this guy a little bit, hit W, hold down V, and I'm going to vert snap that over here. So snapping is going to be pretty important for us to use, and we're going to probably show it a couple different times. Alright, in object mode, let's select both. And it looks like everything lines up. So I think we're ready to delete faces and then start bringing this together. So on each one of these objects, I'm going to have to delete the faces before I merge this together. I counted them, so I know that it's 4 here and 4 here. And if I delete those, you can see this is the box. And I'm going to have to delete those same faces. Alright, delete. So one thing that we're seeing here is that our objects are gray on this side and black on this side. So the black has to do with, or the gray has to do with the direction the normal's facing. And the normal, the normal is basically the side that can be shaded or have lighting information. This usually matters a bit more when we're doing real-time stuff like video games. because it's expensive to calculate both sides. For film resolution models, we do calculate both sides a lot of times, but we can turn that off to speed things up. But what it matters for us here is that it just kind of has to match, right? If it doesn't match, we're going to run into issues in this next operation. So I'm going to do one thing first to run into an issue, so you guys know how to fix it if it comes up. But I'm going to go to Mesh Display Reverse, and now you can see this one's black and this one's gray. I'm going to select them both, Shift right click, and I'm going to go to Combine, and then I'm going to Shift right click and go to Append to Polygon. Append to Polygon is going to allow me to select between these two edges, and it's going to make a polygon shape, but you can see it's twisted because the normals are facing different directions. It's not going to come out right. So I'm going to hit Return and then Undo. So Command Z, and I could Z back and fix that. But when you're out here, an operation you can run is Mesh Display Conform. No. And it didn't like it. So conform will usually, if there's more going one way, it'll be able to figure it out. It didn't. So from the side view, would have probably been best to make this selection. But I'm going to select the ones that are black and reverse those. And now, if I go Shift right click, Append to Polygon, you'll see that polygon turns out the way I want. I'm going to hit G to start a new polygon, so each time to make these quads I want to do that. If I were to keep clicking, it's just going to extend out that polygon. So each one of these I have to hit G, make my polygon, hit G, make my polygon, hit G. Oh, and there I clicked a different edge, right? So I'm just going to Z back, Command Z. So you got to be careful with your selections always. And again, I'm just hitting G to continue this. There's another tool we could have potentially used, and I'll show it in a later video that could have sped up that process instead of appending all those. But now with all those appended, if I hit the 3 key, you see we pretty much have that other shape that was out there. The one I hid, so I hit Control H to hide that. To unhide the last hidden, it's Control Shift H. That'll bring that guy back. So let's smooth him. So I'm hitting the 3 key. The only difference is this shape's a bit mushier, right? But you can see the top looks more like a cylinder because I started with more sides to that cylinder. So let's go ahead and Shift right click, Insert Edge Loop. I'm just going to drop one close to the bottom here, close to where that top of that cube is, and then close to the top of my cylinder. And when I hit 3, it's going to help hold those shapes. And that also is the reason why this was deformed more, because I didn't have those shapes in there to begin with before I made this, right? And then we'd have to still go back and maybe clean up. There's these little puckers and stuff, so we might have to go back and kind of try to clean those up a bit so that we're not seeing those shading errors. So that's how to combine two objects together.